There's a moment in baseball that doesn't make SportsCenter, doesn't trend on TikTok, doesn't get a graphic from the league office. But for a certain kind of ball player, it's Judgment Day. Not opening day, not draft night, not arbitration. It's the moment when 30 teams look at you, a guy who's been riding buses, eating cold post-game pasta, throwing bullpens on backfields in 108-degree heat, and say one of two things. We're protecting you, or we're leaving the door unlocked. And somewhere in that silence, another team whispers, we'll take him. Give him to us. We believe. That moment, that's a Rule 5 draft.
This isn't a glamorous draft. There are no green rooms, no walk-up songs. Nobody's hugging the commissioner. This is the draft for the grinders. This is the draft for the kids who weren't bonus babies. The draft for the 24-year-old in AA who just keeps hitting but never cracked a top 30 list. The draft for the pitcher coming off Tommy John, trying to prove his elbow and his dream still works. And it's also one of the most misunderstood pieces of the Major League Baseball's ecosystem. So tonight we're breaking it wide open. How Rule 5 works, why it exists, why it's basically the ultimate second chance, and why it connects so deeply to every high school athlete who ever felt overlooked by recruiters. Everything we say tonight is real, sourced, and fact-checked. We pulled directly from Baseball America's Rule 5 explainers, eligibility rules, 40-man crunch reports, winter meeting previews, and success rate data. So you're getting the clean, accurate version of the truth.
And look, I'm a strength guy. I'm a what do you like on the backfield at 7 a.m. kind of guy. And Rule 5? It's the draft that rewards people you only notice if you actually pay attention.
It's also the most legal, nerdy draft in professional sports. Roster rules, contract years, eligibility windows, waiver mechanics. This thing is a pocket constitution for baseball.
And it's a lifeline. Because Rule 5 says, if your own team doesn't see you, someone else might.
So grab your coffee, your sunflower seeds, your arbitration handbook if you're feeling spicy, because today we're talking the real history and purpose of Rule 5, how players become eligible, why the 40-man roster is both a shield and a prison, the dudes in the Arizona Fall League who played their way into protection consideration, such as Valdez, Morabito, Mendez, and more. The stars who came from Rule 5, Hamilton, Ugla, I'm so bad at names, Ugla, Santana, Whitlock, Keller, the whole lineage. What teams target now and why hitters barely get picked anymore. It's all about the pitchers. And then Wednesday's Rule 5 at the winter meetings, Wednesday's Rule 5 at the winter meetings in Orlando. Timing, draft order, teams with open 40-man spots, everything.
And we're connecting it to something a lot of you need to hear. Because whether you're a freshman hooper who hasn't gotten a call yet, a softball player watching club teammates get offers, a JUCO kid grinding in silence, or a parent wondering whether coaches even see your child, the Rule 5 draft is a cosmic reminder that being overlooked is not the same thing as being unwanted.
So let's get into it. Rule 5, the draft where you don't walk across the stage, you walk into somebody else's belief in you.
All right, folks. Let's talk about what Rule 5 is, the origin story behind it, and how it works.
To really understand Rule 5, we've got to go back, way back, to the early 1900s. Before the amateur draft, before farm systems even looked like farm systems. Baseball back then was chaos wearing an actual wool uniform. Every minor league team was its own independent business, and they hoarded players. Especially the good ones, because your best hitter wasn't development capital, he was ticket revenue.
So Major Baseball created what they literally just called the draft. It allowed higher level clubs to pluck players stuck on lower level rosters who weren't being promoted. Not because they weren't talented, but because their team wouldn't give them up. This entire historical purpose is laid out succinctly in J.J. Cooper's explainer on the origins of the Rule 5 draft. Rule 5 was born to prevent baseball's version of gatekeeping, a mechanism to say, if you're good enough, someone should give you a shot.
And that spirit hasn't changed. The rules around it, they have become a legal Rubik's Cube and also a huge thing that you have to know for the MLBPA exam so you can represent baseball players.
Next up, let's talk about Rule 5 eligibility.
All right, so here's the cleanest possible breakdown, right from the rule book and the Baseball America explainer. A player becomes Rule 5 eligible if 1, they signed at age 18 or younger and have completed 5 pro seasons, hence Rule 5, or 2, they signed at age 19 or older and have completed 4 pro seasons.
And how about some examples? You're a 17-year-old international signee from 2001, eligible now. You're a 21-year-old college draftee from 2022, eligible now. Anyone whose contract was voided and re-signed, eligible every year after. That's why every November, teams panic organize their spreadsheets.
Because if you don't protect a player on the 40-man roster by the deadline, and this year it was 6 p.m. Eastern time on November 18th, if you remember we had a fast break about that, that player becomes exposed to the Rule 5 draft at the winter meetings in Orlando this year. All right, so the protection deadline, why the 40-man roster matters.
Now this is where it gets cutthroat. Every team only gets 40 spots to protect every player in the entire organization that they think, 1, might help the MLB club soon, or is too valuable to lose for $100,000. That's it.
But look at the real snapshot we got from Baseball America the day before the deadline. Some teams were already full at 40. Orioles?
Orioles, yeah.
The Orioles, Red Sox, Tigers, Mariners, Giants. Some had room, like the Cubs. The Cubs had only 28 spots filled, and others were in the panic zone with 39. If you're the guy in AA whose name isn't on that list at 5:59 p.m., your life just entered this chat.
Let's break this down with clean lawyer precision. On Rule 5 draft day, teams draft in reverse order of standings. This year, the Rockies pick first, the Brewers pick last.
Right. And 2, a team can select any eligible, unprotected player from another organization for $100,000. That fee is spelled out explicitly in all the rules everywhere.
The selecting team must keep that player on his 26-man MLB roster all season. No options, no minor league assignment. Injured list is allowed only for legitimate injuries. And yes, there have been grievances over phantom injuries.
So, 4th, if the team later wants to remove the player from the MLB roster, they must either place him on waivers, and if he clears, offer him back to his original team for $50,000. And the original team can accept him back or decline and let him stay with the new club. It's one of the strictest and, like we said earlier, weirdest rules in professional sports.
And that's why teams mostly pick relievers. You can hide a bullpen guy more easily than you can hide a shortstop who can't hit. Last year, 11 out of 15 major league picks were pitchers, and that trend holds year after year.
It's not a mystery, it's economics. Baseball is always a puzzle of scarcity, and roster spots are the rarest currency. Rule 5 happens, as we said, on the last day of the winter meetings. This year, it's Wednesday, December 10th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time in Orlando in the Bonnet Creek Ballroom. This is important because the meetings are where trades happen, managers get hired, agents and GMs whisper in the hallways, and teams finalize their plans for the year. And actually, a little side note here, if you want to know more about the winter meetings, we will have a blog post on Thursday, and Michael did a fast break breaking down the importance of the winter meetings. So anyway, Rule 5 is the exclamation point. It's the we're about done. Oh, wait, let's steal someone moment.
So just to give you all a quick summary of everything we just said, Rule 5 is a legal safeguard disguised as a baseball draft. It exists to stop teams from burying players. It forces organizations to make decisions. It gives athletes a second chance at a life-changing opportunity. And it is the purest expression of a truth we see in sports law, NIL, and life. And Mike's money line for today: if the door in front of you closes, sometimes another one gets kicked open from behind.
There you go. All right, so let's talk about why it matters: the grind, the minors, and the 40-man crunch. Every November, front offices treat the 40-man roster like a spreadsheet problem. And in a way, it is. I have a spreadsheet with all this stuff in it. To them, it's calculus, but to the players, it's their life.
Picture it from the perspective of a double A outfielder. You've been in the organization for 5 years. You're hitting 270 average. You're running well, defending well, doing everything the development people ask you to do.
And now you're sitting in your apartment watching the clock tick towards 6 p.m. Eastern Time on Rule 5 Protection Day.
Because the 40-man roster, the grid of 40 names, is the single most brutally efficient bottleneck in professional sports.
The Baseball America protection coverage hammered this home. A team like the Cubs was sitting all the way down at 28 filled roster spots, while teams like the Red Sox, the Giants, the Mariners, the Tigers were completely maxed out at 40 heading into the deadline.
The disparity creates winners and losers. It creates opportunity and heartbreak.
If you're on the bubble and your org is at 40, it doesn't matter if you hit 315 in the AFL. It doesn't matter that you just fixed your swing. It doesn't matter that your family is texting you good luck or saying prayers. You're exposed.
Let's talk about the grind behind the scenes. People don't understand how hard the minors really are. Not the cute baseball movie version, the real version. You've got guys who sleep on air mattresses, make less than a high school teacher, ride buses 9 hours through cornfields, lift in hotel gyms with one working machine, eat gas station food after a game, get 5 throws in a bullpen before their elbow lights up again, and still show up the next day like I can get better. And that's why Rule 5 hits me differently. It's not a second chance for superstars, it's a lifeline for the late bloomers. The injury comeback stories. The players who never had a bonus cushion. They just had a dream and a glove. When a guy like Shane Smith goes from Rule 5 pick to front of the rotation arm for the White Sox, which is exactly what happened after the 2024 Rule 5 draft, it proves how much talent gets buried in the system. Or when Mike Vassell becomes a bullpen workhorse for Chicago that same season. That's Rule 5 doing what it's supposed to do. And when those AFL guys, Esmerlin Valdez, Nick Morabito, Jake Bennett, Trenton Denholm, Henry Mendez play well enough to force their organizations to think, we can't lose them. It tells you exactly how thin the margins really are.
So let me explain something from the legal operations side. Player development is not linear. Some guys shoot up the system, some guys stall, some guys get hurt, and some guys reinvent themselves. But the Rule 5 clock doesn't care. A player who signed at 18 doesn't get extra time because he grew into his power at 23. He doesn't get special treatment because he had a breakthrough in AA in September. The Rule 5 timeline is rigid: 5 years or 4 years, depending on your signing age.
That is why so many talented minor leaguers end up in the dangerous position of being lost. Their peak arrives at the same moment the roster math tightens. And because the 40-man roster is protecting the top prospects, the big league depth pieces, the trade chips, the pitchers you don't want to risk losing, the swingmen who fill gaps, and the guys you called up for 2 weeks in June. Suddenly, there's no room left for the kid who is finally becoming who he was meant to be.
And this is called the talent logjam. And Rule 5 is the release valve.
Next up, let's talk about how Rule 5 correlates with high school and college recruiting. So this is what we tell NIL kids and high school athletes. Sometimes you're not overlooked. Sometimes the roster is just full.
That's the Rule 5 draft in a nutshell. You can be talented and still invisible. You can be ready and still blocked. You can be deserving and still unprotected.
That lesson carries across every level of sports. A high school freshman behind a senior-heavy roster, a JUCO player who didn't get invited to the showcases, a walk-on who's better than the guy with a scholarship, an undersized guard who finally hit his growth spurt at 17 years of age, and a softball player whose power shows up late.
In baseball, it's brutal because the numbers are hard. There are 40 spots, not 41. But Rule 5 says somebody else might have a space for you. Somebody else might want you more.
That's the message athletes need tattooed into their brain.
Here's where the stakes spike. If you're taken in the Rule 5 draft, you go straight to the major leagues. You must stay on the 26-man roster the whole season. You jump the line past dozens of prospects in your new organization, and your entire career changes overnight. I mean, the difference in pay between the minor leagues and the major leagues is insane. Yes, Michael?
Absolutely. Baseball America's data shows that in the 2020s, 50% of 5 rule picks stick, which is wild compared to previous decades. That means if your name is called Wednesday, there's a real shot you spend 6 months in the show.
This isn't a lottery ticket anymore. Teams aren't guessing. They are strategically targeting undervalued, MLB ready arms and roles.
That's why guys grind like their life depends on it, because sometimes it does. Rule 5 is the most honest draft in sports. You don't get picked because of hype, you don't get picked because of marketing, and you don't get picked because of high school rankings. You get picked because some scout, some analyst, some director at pitching development saw something in you and said, that guy can help us win tomorrow.
And every kid listening to this, every parent, every athlete needs to hear this. Being stuck in the minors, being ignored by the recruiters, being passed over for someone flashier, none of that means that your story is over.
Sometimes your second chance is the one that counts.
Amen.
So now let's move into segment 4, the Arizona Fall League, AFL, bubble guys, plus the real players who force protection decisions, starting with the final audition. So who actually gets protected? And what are the 40-man results?
Now, here's where it gets really fascinating. We cross-reference the AFL performances with the 40-man roster snapshot 2 days before the deadline, and you can see the pressure everywhere.
Some organizations had no room for their AFL breakouts. Some had plenty. Some were at 38 or 39 and had to decide whether an AFL surge outweighed a fringe big leaguer.
And this is where the internal debates get really heated. Does he project as a major leaguer in 2025 or 2026? Can we afford to risk losing this profile? Is someone else going to pop him? If we protect him, who do we take off?
You don't see these kind of debates on the MLB network, but they're the reason Rule 5 lives. So how do teams think, and what do they target?
We have to talk about specific target profiles because Ian Cundall's breakdown made it obvious that teams aren't guessing anymore. They know exactly what they want. Teams look for relievers with major league stuff but minor league wildness because you can hide a reliever. They look for conversion projects, starters with 2+ pitches who might pop in 1 inning burst. They look for left-handers with command. You can always stash a lefty. They look for athletic outfielders with defense and speed. A fourth outfielder floor equals MLB roster ability. That was a fun sentence. And they look for hitters with extremely high contact rates because if you can put the ball in play, you can survive as a bench bat.
And increasingly, teams are hunting players like Shane Smith and Mike Vassell, the guys picked in 2024 who immediately became legitimate big leaguers for the White Sox. That success rate is changing the entire landscape. Rule 5 used to be the lottery, but now it's the analytics department's favorite loophole.
So what this means for Wednesday, when the Rule 5 draft goes live at 2 p.m. Eastern Time in our neck of the woods, or Everglades, rather.
AFL standouts? They'll be on every draft board in the room. Teams with more than 3 open 40-man spots, thin bullpens, rebuilding timelines, or scouting departments that trust their models. They will absolutely take shots on these bubble players.
Not because they're superstars, but because the Rule 5 draft has become one of the most efficient ways to acquire big league contributors. And if you're a player, you better be sitting by your phone because someone might believe in you more than your own organization does.
So, what's the athlete's lesson?
Well, this is why we preach development over validation. You don't need 30 teams to believe in you. You need one. That's what Rule 5 should be teaching every athlete. Keep improving, keep showing up, Keep grinding through the parts that no one sees.
Someone's watching. Someone will notice. Someone will take their shot on you. And sometimes that shot changes your life.
Yes. So let's close this out with the big lesson, i.e., how Rule 5 is a blueprint for every overlooked athlete.
Rule 5 is my favorite draft in sports because it's the only one built for the dismissed. The first rounders get the glory, the big leaguers get the contracts, the prospects get the hype. But Rule 5? Rule 5 belongs to the ones who kept going even when no one was clapping.
You can't win a Rule 5 job with PR. You can't fake your way onto the 40-man spreadsheet. You can't trick a director of pitching development into saying, yeah, let's carry this guy all year. You earn that whisper and you earn that belief.
And any kid listening to this, any athlete, this applies to you just as much as the guy in AA. If one school doesn't see you, if one coach doesn't call, if one ranking doesn't list your name, that does not mean you're not good enough. It simply means you haven't found your believer yet.
You know, it's funny. The Rule 5 draft is literally a rule book mechanism created to protect labor mobility. It's a fairness clause, a legal remedy disguised as a baseball tradition. But this cold legal rule has more heart than almost anything else in the sport, because built into the structure is this timeless truth. No single organization gets to decide your destiny. Your dream isn't being held hostage by the first team that signed you. Your value isn't capped by the people that once overlooked you. And your trajectory isn't limited to labels you were given at age 17. Baseball wrote a rule that says if someone else believes in you more, they get to prove it. Imagine if life worked that way in more places.
Now, let me talk directly to the young athletes and the parents we work with. You're going to go through stretches where you feel invisible, where you feel like everyone around you is getting opportunities that you deserve, where you're grinding, you're working, you're improving, and nobody seems to notice. But Rule 5 teaches the lesson every athlete must learn. Visibility is not the same as value. Timing is not the same as talent. And being overlooked is not the same as being unwanted.
Your moment may come from the place you least expect, from the scout who saw one swing, from the coach who watched you hustle after a mistake, from the trainer who saw you stay late, from the belief of one person who says, "Give me that kid, I will take him." That's all you need. One believer with one opportunity. Rule 5 is proof.
If you study every legendary Rule 5 success story, Hamilton, Ugla, Whitlock, Keller, Santander, Noda, and Wells, the common thread isn't talent. It's timing, it's readiness, it's perseverance. And most of all, it's this. The second chance ended up being the defining chance. Not the first draft, not the first signing, and not the first team. The second chance, the unexpected one, is the one that changed their lives.
For so many athletes, that's how the story goes. Sometimes your big break is the one you didn't plan for, the one you didn't see coming, the one born from someone else's belief.
So when that draft starts on Wednesday and you hear a name you don't know, a guy from AA, a guy who wasn't on anybody's list, understand this. This might be his moment. That might be the call that changes the trajectory of his family. That might be the break he earned through sweat and long nights and miles of bus rides.
Rule 5 is the draft for the underdog, the fighter, the quiet grinder, the athlete who refused to quit. And every athlete listening, no matter your sport, needs to carry this with you. You are not defined by who overlooked you. You are defined by what you become when someone finally believes.
This is why we love this game. This is why we love this draft. And this is why we believe in storytelling that highlights the overlooked, the undervalued, and the second chancers.
Because somewhere out there right now, a future Rule 5 pick is finishing a workout, trying to stay ready, and wondering if anyone sees him. Someone does, and on Wednesday, we might see him too.
This is the AAA Ball and Play podcast. We'll see you every day this week with more MLB winter meeting and Rule 5 draft news.
You're listening to the AAA Ball and Play podcast. Quick note, this is for education and entertainment. Nothing here is legal, tax, or financial advice, and nothing we say creates an athlete-agent relationship. Listening or contacting us does not make us your lawyers or your agents. For advice, talk to a qualified professional in your state.